This is Bhavdev Panda. Welcome to Master of English. Plus to second year English. Another chapter. The portrait of a lady. The tone of the portrait of a lady is today. And this session is meant for what? Yes, all probable question and answer. जो ज्योतिक का प्रश्न माने थिंक इट आउट हो कि पैसेज हो कि जो क्वेश्चन आसीबार अछि से क्वेश्चन ताको सीधा पैसेज रु केमति उतार कि सीधा लिखि परिबा मैटर होची सेया सब पिला पास करिवे केमति मोटो होची सेया ओके ताहले आ विलंब करिवा नै जो माने जॉइन होचे से माने फटाफट शेयर कर देबा जहा पर संग माने जॉइन करिवे पिले ओके सो लेट्स स्टार्ट प्रथम पेसेज पिले प्रथम पेसेज ता अछि कोन yes my grandmother like everybody's grandmother was an old woman so to start karike todu gaile that second that seemed quite absurd and undignified on our part and we treated it like the fables of the prophet she used to tell us prathama unit prathama prashna what are the narrator's grandmother like what was the narrator's grandmother like narrator mane jo lekhak achandi tankar jejema ki bhali dekha jautile she was the narrator's grandmother was old and wrinkled kona she was old and wrinkled bas that much will do etiki lekhile 2 mark paiba pile au eta ame passage ru pai jiba chinta karibar kichhi nai number 2 how did the grandfather appear in his portrait how did the grandfather appear in his portrait the author's grandfather wore a big turban and loose-fitting clothes, and he had long white beard, covered the best part of his chest. He looked as if he was 100 years old. Nahi, as if 100 tha जाउथले बिले. Okay, question number परवर्ती प्रश्न. Question number 3 को जिबा. What did he look like in his portrait? What did he look like in his portrait? Means grandfather का कथा से उधर. So he looked like the author's grandfather looked like at least 100 years old, and he was looking like a sort of person who would have lots and lots of grandchildren. Nahi, so this is the answer. Next question को जिबा मु तुमको कहूची आमे पैसेज भितरु आंसर केमति लिखिबा मु सेही ऊपर वर्तमान क्लास सेशन गुडा को करूची कारण सब पिला इजीली से क्वेश्चन को फाइंड आउट करिवे एथरे मनरु किछि नै सब बहिरु आंसर लिखि कि केमति भलो करियो सेटा होची कथा बि नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन देखिबा बिले नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन होची एक्जेक्टली द थॉट वाज ऑलमोस्ट रिवोल्टिंग व्हाई डज द नरेटर सो से एक कथा काहे की कहि चमते द थॉट वाज ऑलमोस्ट रिवोल्टिंग जो कहिले एक कथा से काहे की कहि चंती रे पिले because in the portrait the grandfather looked very old in comparison to his grandmother. That's why he had said so. सेथि पई से ए बळे कहचंती जे जेजेमा आ जेजेबापांगर छवि आ जेजेमांगु देखिले जेजे बापा जेजे मांगो थारु बहुत बुढा बळा देखा जाउतिले and this thought was almost revolting तांको भितरे ए जिंसटा आंदोलित होतला परवर्ती प्रश्न देखा परवर्ती प्रश्न why was it hard for the author to believe that his grandmother was once young and pretty तांको जेजेमा केतेबेले गोटे माने गोटे समय थला जेतले से सुंदरी थिले आ युवती मध्ये थिले ए कथा काहे कि से विश्वास करि पारो नथिले काहे कि because she had seen the narrator had seen his grandmother for the past 20 years and she had been so old and wrinkled that she was not growing older that's why it was hard for him to believe that she was once been young and pretty okay ये थिला प्रथम पेसेज द्वितीय पेसेज ऊपर को द्वितीय पेसेज ता मनै छि पिले my grandmother and I were good friends my friends left me with her when they went to live in the city sister also my grandmother sat inside reading the scripture unit 2 2 number unit तो 2 नंबर यूनिट रा प्रथम प्रश्न कोन बोले प्रथम प्रश्न होची व्हाट वाज ग्रैंडमदर्स वर्क इन द मॉर्निंग प्रत्येक दिन सकाळू जेजेमा कोन करथला एग्जैक्टली सो एवरी मॉर्निंग द ग्रैंडमदर ड्रेस्ड एंड बाथ द author and she went to school get him ready to school and even if she went to school with the author, she went to school because the school was attached to the temple, and this was her daily routine. This was her daily routine. Sabudiniya kamo thila. Next question dekhiba. So why was the author listening to grandmother's voice? So why were the authors listening to grandmother's voice? Jejemankara swara se kahinki sunutile? Because the author was in love with the voice of the grandmother. She was in love with the voice of the grandmother. That's why she was he was listening exactly. କାହିଁକି କାରଣ ଜେଜେମାଙ୍କର ସ୍ୱର ତାଙ୍କୁ ଭଲ ଲାଗୁଥିଲା, and she never bothered to learn those songs that were being sung by the grandmother herself. Next question. Question number 3, second passage. 3 number प्रश्न कौन? How was she preparing the author for school? School को जेबा ପାଇଁ केमती से रेडी करी दउथुला. या ऊपर ऑलरेडी फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन रे भी मु कहिछि आ उतरे कहूछि she woke the author off in the morning, then bathed him and dressed him up and get him ready for school. Thereafter she provided breakfast for the author, and thereafter they both went to the school. And the reason grandmother was going there was very simple, because the school was attached to the temple. From the books only. I'm telling the answer from the books only. Okay, next question. So why was grandmother accompanying the author to school? Why was grandmother accompanying the author to school? काहे से accompany करतला तांके साथरे काहे के जाउतला? कारण कोन थिला? Because the school was attached to the temple. यार उत्तर बहुत सरल. Because the school was attached to the temple, that's why she was going with the author to the school. Next question. What was she doing when children were reading? जेतेबेले पिला माने पढुथिले सेतेबेले जेजेमा कोन करतला? She was reading scripture inside the temple while the students were reading. ଯେତେବେଳେ ପିଲାମାନେ ପଢୁଥିଲେ ସେ କଣ କରୁଥିଲା? ମନ୍ଦିର ଭିତରେ ବସିକି ପୁରାଣ ପଢୁଥିଲା, ଭାଗବତ ପଢୁଥିଲା, ଗୀତା ପଢୁଥିଲା, ରାମାୟଣ ପଢୁଥିଲା, କଣ ପଢୁଥିଲା? ପୁରାଣ ପଢୁଥିଲା. ସିମ୍ପଲ ରିଲିଜିୟସ୍ ବୁକ୍ସ. ଓକେ, ଆଉ ଶେଷ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ହଉଛି what was she doing when children? ଏଟା ତ ମୁଁ କହିଲି ମାନେ 5ଟା ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ଆମର ସରିଗଲା ବେଲେ 5ଟା ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ସରିଗଲା କଣ ଆମର ସେକେଣ୍ଡ ପେସେଜ ର. ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯିବା थर्ड नंबर पेसेज पाखକୁ. थर्ड नंबर पेसेज कोन पिले? थर्ड नंबर पेसेज चाहूची when my parents were comfortably settled in the city, what happens? They sent for us and she rarely talked to me after that. ये होची हमर जो थर्ड यूनिट थिला नहीं, थर्ड यूनिट रो फर्स्ट पार्ट रे ए क्वेश्चन गुडा का अछि. सो ओके, नेक्स्ट प्रथम प्रश्न देखा. प्रश्नटी होची when did the author's parents send for him? केते बेले अथरकर पितामाता एमाननको माने खबर पठेले. The author parents, after getting settled in the city, the author's parents sent for the author. Okay, se mane jetebele city re settle he gele setebele mane khabar pathele. That much will do. Too much, yeah. Okay, next question. How did grandmother spend her time in the city house re jejema tankor time kibholi spend karuthile? How she was spending? In the city, grandmother spent her time in the afternoon sitting on the roof and feeding the sparrows, sitting in the veranda and feeding the sparrows. कौन करथिले? बरंडा रे बसिकी घर छोटिया मानकु खाइबा को दवा पे देइकरी से तार टाइम स्पेंड करथला. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. हाउ डिड ग्रैंडमदर, ओके सॉरी नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. व्हाट मेड ग्रैंडमदर अनहैप्पी? जेजेमा केते बेले दुखी हला बेले? What made grandmother unhappy? So exactly when the grandmother heard from the author about the teaching inside the English medium school, the Western science and etc., and she came to listen that there was no teaching about God, she became unhappy. ସେତେବେଳେ ସେ ଦୁଃଖୀ ହେଲା. Okay, ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ. Why was grandmother distressed? ଗୋଟେ ଥିଲା unhappy କାହିଁ ହେଲା, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି distressed. तो यार उत्तर बहुत सहज बोले. When the author announced that he will be taught he will be taught music in the school, after listening these words she was distressed. she बहुत disturb hela. Exactly, yes or no? Okay, next question. There was no next question. What was grandmother's opinion on music in school? What was grandmother's opinion on music in school? School re music bisare tar opinion kona thila. What was her opinion exactly? So simple. According to grandma, music had lewd association. It is the monopoly. It is the monopoly of harlots and beggar. It was not meant for gentle folk. It was not meant for gentle लोक से कहूला जे म्यूजिक टा भद्र लोक मानक पई नुह एहा भिखारी मानक पई एवं बेश्या मानक पई उद्दिष्ट बोली कथा से कहूतिले तो ये थिला पांचटा प्रश्न जिबा आ गोटे पैसेज 4 नंबर पैसेज पाकू 4 नंबर पैसेज कोन व्हेन आई डिसाइडेड टू गो अब्रॉड फॉर फर्दर स्टडीज आई वाज सीओ माय ग्रैंडमदर वुड बी ऑफ शिट ଆଉ ଶେଷ ଷ୍ଟାଞ୍ଜା ହେଲା that was the first time since I had known her that she didn't pray है तो ये होची कौन पिले ए होची हमर जो लास्ट यूनिट रो फर्स्ट पार्ट तीन टा चारटा पैराग्राफ ओके प्रथम प्रश्न होची what did the author think when he was to go abroad जते बेले विदेश जीवा पई पडिला सेते बेले से कौन भावुथिले the author thought that his grandmother would be upset when he decided to go abroad जेते से विदेश जीवा पई स्थिर गले से सेते भावुथिले जे तांको जेजेमा अपसेट हबो क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 what was grandmother's reaction to the author's going abroad जेते बेले ऑथर भार माने विदेश को जीवा पई बाहरले खुशवंत सिंह सेते बेले ग्रैंडमा को रिएक्शन कोन थिला there was no feeling or emotion inside the grandmother माने तंग जेजेमा के भीतर कोनोसी सेंटिमेंट नथला she was not even sentimental yes or no and she came to leave the author at the railway station and she didn't talk to him on that departing day also yes or no next question देखियो next question होजी what are the author cherished what has the author cherished author कोन साहित्य की रखी थिले what had the author cherished the author had cherished the moist imprint of the final kiss of the grandmother तांको जेजेमांकर जो जेजेमा जेतले फोरहेड रे तांकर किस करथिले जेतले गला बेले सेही मोस्ट इम्प्रिंट को से चेरिस्ट करिकि रखिथिले परवर्ती प्रश्न व्हाट वाज ग्रैंडमदर्स ओपिनियन ऑन म्यूजिक इन स्कूल आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड ए ऊपर मु डिस्कस करि सारिछि सॉरी परवर्ती प्रश्न होछि हाउ डिड ग्रैंडमदर बिहेव व्हेन द ऑथर रिटर्न आफ्टर 5 इयर्स 5 वर्ष परे जेजेमा जेतले आसिले कुठू सॉरी ऑथर जेतले आसिले 5 वर्ष परे कुठू अब्रोड रु सेते तांकर रिएक्शन कोन थिला शी वाज रिएक्शनलेस सिंपल शी वाज नॉट हैप्पी एट ऑल आई नो नॉट शोइंग हिज हर हैप्पीनेस टू द ऑथर और नॉट शेयरिंग एनीथिंग नॉट इवन इफ नॉट टॉकिंग with the author and that day also the perfect time for her was feeding the sparrows and telling the beads of rosary तार से मालो जफिबा एवं से चढ़े मान को खुएबा सेटा ही ता पई प्रकृष्ट समय दिला यस और नो ओके लास्ट क्वेश्चन व्हाट डिड शी डू इन द इवनिंग संध्या रे से कोन कला जेजेमा जो दिन ऑथर आसिले से दिन जेजेमा संध्या रे कोन कला एग्जैक्टली she collected the human folk of the neighborhood and brought a dilapidated drums yes or no dilapidated drums and started singing and dancing yes or no the author and his family they just pursued her but she ignored their protest they protested but she ignored yes or no so this was the thing being done by whom the grandmother ये थिला चारोटी फेसेस रो 20 टी प्रश्न बेले वर्तमान जीवा टिके थिंक इट आउट आडू को जीवा बहिर प्रश्न उत्तर आलोचना करिवा ना नाही यस और नो मते कहि दबो जदि आवश्यकता नाही ताले प्रश्न उत्तर आलोचना करिवे नाही व्हाट डू यू थिंक बहिर प्रश्न उत्तर आलोचना करिबा की जदि तमे इंटरेस्टेड टाइप यस इफ नो टाइप नो यू हैव 4 सेकंड लेफ्ट 1 2 Yes, okay. Yes, okay. Why was it hard for the author to believe that his grandmother was once young and pretty? Why was it hard for the author to believe that his grandmother was once being young and pretty? काहे कि एकता विश्वास होनुथला जे तांकर जेजेमा गोटे समय रे ସୁନ୍ଦରୀ ଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଯୁବତୀ ଥିଲା ଏ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ମୁଁ ପ୍ୟାସେଜରେ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିଛି ତ ସେଇ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନର ଉତ୍ତର ଏଠି ମୁଁ କହିବି ନାହିଁ ଓକେ ନେକ୍ସଟ ହାଉ ଡିଡ୍ ଦ ଗ୍ରାଣ୍ଡଫାଦର appear in his portrait ଏଇ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନ ବି ମୁଁ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିସାରିଛି ଅଲରେଡି ଆଇ ହାଭ୍ ଅଲରେଡି ଟୋଲ୍ଡ ତ ଏଇ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନର ଉତ୍ତର ଆଉ ଥରେ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିବି ନାହିଁ नंबर 3 what sort of a person did he look in his portrait ये प्रश्न भी मु आलोचना करि सारिछि तो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन होछि हाउ डू द ऑथर पोर्ट्रे हिज ग्रैंडमदर how does the author portray his grandmother ये प्रश्न उत्तर होछि as portrayed by the author the grandmother was short fat and slightly bent she was short fat and slightly bent yes or no her silver locks were scattered over a pale puckered face as having not impact of her age तार बयस उपरे कोनोसी छाप छाडू नथिले परवर्ती पृष्ठ why does he say the thought was almost revealing so the thought was almost revealing he had said so because from the people the author had listened about the youthful grace of his grandmother in other words it was quite difficult on his part to believe once the grandmother was young and pretty when people were telling their लोक माने कहउतले जे तम जेजेमा भी गोटे दिन माने सुंदरी थिला युवती थिला एकथा से विश्वास करि पानथि काहे कि कारण दीर्घ 20 वर्ष हला से जानिथिले तांगु आ 20 वर्ष हला से सेही एज रे रहि थिले बेरे नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन द ग्रैंडमदर हैड अ डिवाइन ब्यूटी हाउ डू द ऑथर ब्रिंग दिस आउट तार जो अपूर्व सुंदरता को किभଳି पोर्ट्रे करचंती द ऑथर ब्रिंग्स आउट द डिवाइन ब्यूटी ऑफ ग्रैंडमदर बाय कंपेयरिंग हर विथ द विंटर लैंडस्केप तांकु विंटर लैंडस्केप सहित माने तुलना करिकि तार डिवाइन तार से सुंदरता को से पोर्ट्रे करचंती बिले ये थिला प्रथम यूनिट रो किछि प्रश्न वर्तमान जीवा यूनिट 2 रे अछि पांचटी प्रश्न प्रथम प्रश्न कोन व्हाट आर द ग्रैंडमदर्स रूटीन इन द विलेज so she usually walked the author off in the morning dressed him and bathed him and dressed him and at that time the time of bathing exactly she was singing her morning prayer in monotonous sing song the author listened because he loved the voice of grandmother but never cared to learn it and thereafter she get him ready for school and went to school with the author this was the daily routine of the grandma next question how did the grandmother take care of the writer during his childhood was she a good companion of the writer in the village I've already told से जिंस लिखिबा शेषर जो जिंस अछि was she a good companion yes she was a good companion एतिके लिखिदेले मु जो प्रथम प्रश्न कहली हे जियो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन होछि what lesson did the writer learn from the village priest तारु से माने कोन सिखुतले they were learning alphabets and morning prayer next question how did the grandmother spend her time at the temple she spent her time reading scripture at the temple next question was she a religious person yes she was a religious person because she used to do her morning prayer visit the temple read scripture throwing beds to the villagers these are the example that she was a religious lady yeah eta thila unit 2 bartaman jiba unit 3 pakku unit 3 रे कोन छी why did not the grandmother accompany the writer in school in the city school को जतबेले राइटर जाउथले शहर रे थिला बेले से काहे की जाउ नथिला because the writer used to go to that English school by a motor bus that's why there was no need of the grandmother to accompany him next question hoji why could not the grandmother help the writer with the lesson at the city school because he was being taught because one thing was being taught English in an English medium school western science and Archimedes principle etc which is out of reach of the grandmother जोटा ग्रैंडमा रो रीच बाहर थिला तेन से हेल्प करि पारु नथिला क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 why did the lesson at the English school distress the grandmother the lesson at the English school did not include the teaching about God that's why she was distressed कारण सेठी भगवान को विषय पढ़ा हो नथिला आ हम जेम टिके आरो डिस्कस करतले she was a religious lady next question number 4 what is it yeah why was she disturbed about music lesson at the English school music lesson विषय से डिस्टर्ब हला काहे की because she felt disturbed because according to her music had lewd association it is the monopoly of harlots and beggar and it is not meant for gentle folk according to the grandma next question What were the three ways in which the grandmother spent her days when the author went to university? University गला परे को तीनिटा काम करिकि से तार टाइम स्पेंड करूतला. So one was spinning wheel, second prayer, and third feeding the sparrows. These are the three works she was doing while the other went to university. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେ ଗଲେ. Next question, question number 6. What are the happiest time of the day for her? The hour when she fed the sparrows was the happiest time of the day for her. Last question, how did she accept her seclusion? किभଳି से तार seclusion separateness टाको accept करथिला. She had accepted her seclusion with silence, and she had no other options but to accept her separatism. So that's all for the day. आज थिला एई सब प्रश्न उत्तर पुनी देखा हबो परवर्ती लाइव सेशन रे आसंता काली 8टा बेले पिले. काली टिके लेट भी हेई पारे कारण मोर गोटे प्रोग्राम अछि मु फेरु में भी 7:30 8टा हे जाय पारे. तो जदी लेट हुए ताले 8:30 बेले क्लास हबो. सी यू देयर. स्टे मास्टर. जय जय.